There we go.
Hello and welcome to First Geek 411. It's a very special episode. With me, as always, is my best man, Chris Nicolay. Chris, how you doing today?
Hello. I'm well. Weather's been great. I'm loving
Nice.
it. Kind of. It's nice and cool. Feels like fall, but it's not fall.
It's very warm here, but we are supposed to be getting a cold front tomorrow.
Is it coming from us? Probably.
Probably.
I'm
I
just.
don't know. Weather's a mystery
It's coming from somewhere.
somewhere. But we're not here to talk about the weather. We're here to talk about Innistrad Midnight Hunt, the latest spoopy magic set, set on the plane of Innistrad. As always, we will each be bringing our top 10 cards. I say as always, like we didn't just like literally have a guest last time and not do 10 cards each, but so that is a packed value of 20 total cards. Um, and as always, our thoughts, all of that kind of stuff on the set itself. So before we get into it, as always, listeners, you can find us on our social media at OneGeek411. You can join our Discord server. You can shoot us an email at 1stgeek411@gmail.com. You can check us out at our website, onegeek411.com. Watch live Monday nights, 6:45 Mountain Time. And then you can find the videos over on YouTube. Then you can rate and subscribe wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. And then you can also check out our Redbubble store. So we are chatting Midnight Hunt, spoopy werewolf themed set. There's a good chance I messed it up several times throughout this. And
Boobay.
yeah, this is our third return to Innistrad. And would you believe, Chris, it has been 10 years since the first Innistrad set?
Not long enough. I'm just kidding. Mostly because I feel like we were just there, but.
Yeah.
And there's other planes we've never returned to.
Hey, we're getting some of that soon, though, next year.
I know, but it's just like we're just here. I feel like. Well, it has been a few years because it's been rotated out for a while, but either way, I'm just saying.
Yeah. Did you play during OG Innistrad? I know, like that was like right around like when we were in college and like just getting back into it. I don't remember if you did like pre-releases or anything.
Like I feel like that was right before we did, but I don't know for sure. Was that before? What? Oh.
So I feel like it was Innistrad, then Scars of Mirrodin. Maybe I have that backwards.
Scars. If that is right, then Scars is where I jumped in. Is where I came back in. Just missed it.
Just missed it. It was right after Scars. So
then just missed it because I quit right away. No, I'm just well, we just didn't like access to standard was very spotty when we were in college.
Yeah,
Where we were, I guess. Like we did the pre-releases, but we never like went to Friday Magic or anything.
yeah, and that was kind of what I remembered. Like we played some just like around, and then I remember us playing a lot of Scars, not really playing any Innistrad, and then I know I really would say I got back into Magic during Return to Ravnica. That was the first set that was out post college,
Like when I
the
came
first block.
back,
So
Innistrad was the big set at the time,
hmm.
or one of the standard, or not original Innistrad, but the return to Innistrad, whatever it was. What was it? Shadows of Innistrad. That set was in standard when I first started back up again when I moved back home. So semi familiar.
Nice. In this set, as always, we got mechanics. Some of them new, some of them old. Our first new one we'll be talking about a few times during this cast, and that is Bound Nightbound. This is a twist on the werewolf mechanic from the original set, because like previous sets, we have transform. This is different than all the cards that we got from um, Zendikar, Strixhaven, and Kaldheim, where you could pick the side. Um, these cards will either enter on the or if they have day bound, night bound, they'll enter on the appropriate side. So day bound is typically whenever someone enters, it'll make it day if it's not one already. And then if a player casts no spells during their turn, it'll become nightbound, and all daybound and nightbound cards will flip. Then the big twist here is that if it is night and you cast a card with nightbound, it will enter on that side instead of entering on the daybound side. And so that's an interesting twist. I think makes a lot more sense. Apparently, it's a lot harder to like keep track of in paper because it matters much more. Whereas with old werewolves, you could just kind of like you tracked it for the individual unit, and so.
But it's nice. Like it'll be interesting because you like especially if everyone has daybound, nightbound cards like on the field. It's like everyone flip, everyone flip. Everyone flip.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds
fun. Yeah, I did some drafting yesterday on stream, and there was a time where I didn't want to cast a spell because I wanted my daybound thing to transform, and that then caused my opponent's thing to transform, which then was worse for me because I now couldn't use my removal spell on it. So,
oops.
But we'll talk about that actually later on in my list. But so that's daybound, nightbound. Chris, what's one of our other mechanics?
I don't know. New mechanics?
New, old, whatever your heart tells you.
Only because I did not research this set well enough for this episode. Let's talk about Flashback because that's a fun one. And I think I have a card that has Flashback. Maybe.
I know I do.
I thought I did. Yes. So Flashback and so it typically has some alternate cost, but you may cast this card from your graveyard for its Flashback cost, and then you exile it. So you essentially get 2 uses out of it. Some cards have a cheaper Flashback cost than the original, which is super cool. So it's better in your graveyard almost. Some have a fully alternate casting cost, like life, or I don't know if any in the set do, but great on spells.
Mm-hmm. And you know where else Flashback would be great, Chris? On creatures, and that's what Disturb is. And so I don't know if we have any Disturb cards. I didn't see anyone in my quick glance, but the way that Disturb works is if a creature with Disturb is in your graveyard, you can cast it for its Disturb cost, and it enters on the backside. And so that's a way, from a legendary creature standpoint, it's pretty cool because it means that you kind of get this alternate effect from your commander before you have to recast it again from the command zone, because you can just let it go to the graveyard the first time it dies. So it's definitely
before you have to pay the increased costs.
Exactly. And so it's pretty interesting. It's a cool take on creature Flashback, which we've seen before. And then we should say if a creature that you cast for Disturb dies, they exile. So you can't just kind of keep looping the card. But it's definitely a fun take. I like it a lot more than Unearth, I think was the other Flashback inspired creature mechanic. But yeah. And then the last mechanic is Coven. And are you familiar with Coven, Chris?
Nope.
Okay. So Coven is the mechanic of one of the commander decks that goes with this set. And then
maybe that's why I'm not familiar. I haven't even looked at the commander decks.
Yeah. And it's kind of we saw this with dice rolling in Adventures in the Forgotten Realms, where dice rolling was one way in the set, and then the commander deck kind of expanded on that. That's kind of the same idea of Coven here, where Coven is in the regular set, and then there's just more of it in the commander deck. So Coven is basically like Landfall, where when a land enters battlefield, you do something. Coven is, as long as you have creatures with 3 different powers, something happens. So you might give a creature double strike if you have creatures with 3 different power. You might draw a card. You could things like that. And so every single card with Coven is different, but they all trigger off of that having 3 creatures with 3 different powers. It is indeed a mechanic. And so
sounds like a thing.
Yeah, and I'll say what I said in the stream. It's either going to be super easy, where you're going to just have 3 different creatures, 1, 2, 3, or it's going to be a huge pain because all of your creatures are like 3 power, and you're just going to be stuck there. So it's going to be one of those.
It's going to be all of them.
All of them. But with that, Chris, I guess let's go ahead and jump into our top 10 cards. Why don't you start us off?
So, my first card, let's go ahead and jump in just with the land. Oops. The Hostile.
I made my stance on puns well known, but I like this one. I think that this is like an on point good pun.
I wouldn't like, this is almost just, it's like, just abuse of synonyms.
Mm-hmm.
Or sorry,
homonyms?
Homonyms.
That one.
That one, yeah. Because it's just, and it's also because like it really does come down to also geographic differences on how you pronounce the first word.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I wonder if that exists in the other languages that is translated into. If they were able to.
I hope they found something, but I feel like that's something that's pretty hard to do.
Yeah.
And that's also like one of my problems with like dubbed animes and things like that. But yeah, this is kind of a throwback to kind of Westville Abbey, kind of this transforming land. Typically taps for colorless, but you can also pay 1 and tap and sacrifice a creature, and you put a soul counter on a hostile. Then if there are 3 or more soul counters on it, remove those counters and transform it, then untap it, activate only as a sorcery. This is nice because it's kind of you can build it up gradually as you have the free mana and open land, versus Westvale, which is all or nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But then it transforms into the Creeping Inn, which is a 3/7 artifact creature horror construct. Whenever Creeping Inn attacks, you may exile a creature card from your graveyard. If you do, each opponent loses X life, and you gain X life, where X is the number of creature cards exiled with Creeping Inn. Kind of nice. And also has this built-in protection you can pay for, and Creeping Inn phases out. I like it.
Yeah, I like this card a lot too. I like that it builds on itself, it protects itself. Like, it's kind of a fun, like, mid-rangey, like, finisher, because you need creatures to sacrifice, but then you also like don't really want to be getting them back, so you kind of just want a lot of like cheap things in your graveyard. So
yeah, you just get some cheap things in there. You just start exiling them every attack turn. He protects himself. Like it doesn't have like the indestructible or hexproof or anything like that. It's not crazy hard to deal with necessarily, like Westvale can be, or some other kind of land things that happen. But yeah, bad thing. It's no longer land, but that's the point.
Yeah, I mean, if you're at the point where you've activated this 3 times, like, you should be okay on lands. Like,
right. Granted, it's not hard because it's like 1 cost to activate on the hostile end. And then yeah, because it's like, okay, 3 turns, so. But also, like, it definitely needs to be one of those things where it's like either you are putting a ton of stuff in your graveyard or whatever to kind of make it most use. It definitely goes into a graveyard deck for sure.
Definitely. My next card, or first card, I guess, is a transform card that would kind of work in the hostile deck. And that is Suspicious Stowaway / Seafaring Werewolf. This is obviously our first werewolf. And so on the day side, Suspicious Stowaway is a 2 mana 1/1 that can't be blocked. And then when it deals damage to a player, draw a card, then discard a card. And then it's day bound. So this is fine. Like, I don't think that on this end itself, it's a great card. But it is unblockable. So it does kind of have all those benefits. Looting is definitely nice. I have a a very soft spot in my heart for the mono blue tempo deck. And so this kind of has a home in that. And then this card flips into Seafaring Werewolf, where it becomes green, which you learn like is a thing. And it can't be blocked still. And then whenever it deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. And now it's a 2/1. So it gets an extra power, but you no longer loot. You now just get to draw a card whenever this deals damage. And so this is really sweet. I like this card. I can't wait to suit this up with an aura, like a Curious Obsession or something like that, and just start drawing a ton of cards. Like, especially since this isn't actually green from a mana cost perspective. So you can just jam it in mono blue. So,
well, not in Commander, though.
Correct. Not in Commander. Good call out. So I will say one of the reasons I like this card is that in Standard, you can play it in mono blue. One of the reasons I dislike the card is that you have to be in blue-green to play this in Commander, and it makes me sad. Not necessarily that I think this has a huge home in Commander, but still.
I mean, unblockable is always a fun thing. Regardless. And both sides are. But just like getting the extra power when it's night and watching them flip back and forth in the set would be fun. I think this isn't necessarily bad just because it's such a cheap card anyway. It takes a 2 mana slot in some Commander decks for sure. Especially, I feel like it has a place in a Simic deck somewhere.
Yep, for sure. I mean, is it what's the whenever a creature deals damage to an opponent, its controller draws a card? Commander. But that's the, let me go to EDH trick. But I feel like the reason that I'm sad about it is I feel like this card has an awesome place in ninjas, but you can't play it because most ninja decks are blue-black.
It's not the mirror,
and so
for sure,
kind of makes me sad.
For sure, but
Edric is the card I'm thinking of.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I think this could also like would be fine in like a jury deck too. To start getting just pumped up unblockable.
Yeah, good call. Yeah, go big on those tokens.
Yeah, because counters don't go away when it flips, right?
Right.
Because it's not. Yeah.
It doesn't leave the battlefield.
Exactly.
So. I like it. What is your next card?
That is a wonderful question. What is on my list? Let's do the Enduring Angel as my next card. Enduring Angel is I have like several flip cards. But Enduring Angel costs 2 and 3 white. It is a creature angel with flying, double strike, gives me hexproof. And if my life total would be reduced to 0 or less, instead transform Enduring Angel and your life total becomes 3. Then if Enduring Angel didn't transform this way, I lose the game. Oops.
Yep, don't clone this.
No, do not clone it. Yeah. And then on the other side, its transform version is Angelic Enforcer. It has flying, and I still maintain hexproof, but its power and toughness are each equal to my life total. Whenever Angelic Enforcer attacks, double your life total. Yeah. It's pretty nice. I love these white cards. I love white cards that have that power and toughness equal to your life total. I like that this has a lot of stipulations on it. It's like, oh, this is great if you're about to lose. Whoop, there it is. And then you kind of just stabilize. Like, it's a good stabilizing card. Potentially, depending on your table. Hopefully it's not like a full board still. Yeah. Because it's a lot. It'd be a little tough to get through.
This definitely has the vibe of like, one person attacked you to kill you. Cool, your Enduring Angel flipped over. Cool, now that next person just attacks you.
Yes, exactly. It's like, oh, okay, yeah. It depends. Yeah, it's always going to depend on the board, but it can possibly save your life. So, and it has a very powerful turn effect. Potentially.
Apparently I clicked on a random card and I was like, that is not in my list. My next card is a common removal spell that you might want to use on your opponent's Enduring Angel, and that is Moonrager's Slash, also called Lightning Bolt by people online. And so it's 2 in a red instant. This spell deals 2 damage to cast if it's night, and then it deals 3 damage to any target. So at night, this is Lightning Bolt, which is awesome. This is the card that I was referencing earlier, where I wanted it to become night, and so I could use this for 1 mana, and then my opponent's creature became an X4. And so I couldn't use it to kill the creature that I wanted to pay less mana to kill it with.
So you wanted to pay less mana, but then the creature got bigger as well, and you're like, oh.
Yeah, so mistakes were made.
Is that the one you lost in your draft? Is that your one? And it's all due to this misplay.
I don't think
all
so.
Because of
I think I recovered that
misplay.
one, but I don't remember. But this is the type of card that's sweet. I like cards that there's a few of them in this set that when it is night, blank happens, or the effect gets bigger or something like that. And I like that way of tying in instants and sorceries into that mechanic.
Yeah.
And then this isn't embarrassing on its own. Like, it's not great, but like people played Wizard's Lightning, and like, of course you wanted to play that in a Wizard's deck, but like, I think that this is pretty cool in that same kind of respect.
I really like the day-night mechanic so far, or the idea of it, especially for Commander. It just seems like much like the Monarch and things like that. It's just a fun thing to introduce to the table and see what happens, especially if there are multiple people running some of these cards. Just it's a changes things up.
Yeah. I completely agree. I'm a huge fan of things like the Monarch, City's Blessing, just like these like random effects that give this sort of out of the game ability. And so I also feel like there's going to be times where somebody's going to be like, are we good with just not tracking this anymore? But hopefully it won't be too bad.
Speaking of the day-night mechanic, my next card is Sunstreak Phoenix, which is 2 and 2 red for a 4/2 Phoenix, which means somehow it's going to come back to the battlefield from your graveyard.
Do it
somehow, So it's 4/2 flyer. If it's neither day nor night, it becomes day as Sunstreak Phoenix enters the battlefield. And then whenever day becomes night or night becomes day, you may pay 1 and a red. If you do, return Sunstreak Phoenix from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So, yeah.
This is like the least mythic feeling mythic.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. I don't agree with its rarity.
Yeah.
By any means. Because it's a 4/2, so easy to deal with.
Like if it didn't enter tapped, if it had haste, like
if it had anything else, like it does need a power boost for its rarity. I wasn't picking it for that. I just like Phoenixes, and I think this is one of my I like that they incorporated this Phoenix into that day night rotation. That's a very, very awkward rarity level for this card.
Yeah, I really like this card as well. I like it's mostly on red-white, but this idea of cards that do something when it shifts between day and night, but they don't care which one it is.
I think it just cares about the transition piece.
Yeah. Like there's another one I had in my draft where whenever it flips between them, you deal 1 damage to each opponent. And so just stuff like that, just to have those little effects, I think is a very cool way of bringing that mechanic and making it matter on non-double-faced cards.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. It does a great job.
My next card is honestly one of the characters I was most excited to be, or that we would get in Innistrad. And that is Lysa, Forgotten Archangel, our lost sister. She is back from the dead. We just also recently saw her in Commander Legends, but this is her first like standard set appearance. And it's also our first card with this alternate frame. I love this alternate frame. I think it's so cool. Again, Wizards knocking it out with their alternate arts. So,
yeah, it definitely adds value to any given set in such a great way. And yeah, definitely agree.
Belisa is a 2 white, and black, so 5 total for a legendary creature, Angel. She's a 4/5. She is flying and lifelink. And then whenever another non-token creature you control dies, return that card to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. Then when a creature an opponent controls would die, exile it instead. So obviously, this has huge like Marchesa the Black Rose energy. Like your creatures die, but they don't actually die. They come back. In this case, they come back to your hand, but still pretty cool. And then you also have whenever a creature or you have like the incidental graveyard hate of just exiling your opponent's creatures when they die, which is going to be great at some tables. Isn't going to matter as much as others, but I think is a very strong effect to kind of just have stapled on to an already good card.
Yep.
I really want to build Lysa Shadowborn Apostles. I think is kind of what I'm thinking, because then you sacrifice all your Shadowborn Apostles and they all just come right back to your hand.
True. Gross. Stop it. Shut up.
Thanks. I hate it.
It's like, oh, the ultimate Shadowborn Apostle commander. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if it would be better than Athreos, but since Athreos does return them to the battlefield, right? But I feel like it would be a lot harder to disrupt than Athreos.
Yeah.
Listeners, let us know what you think of this hypothetical Shadowborn Apostles deck.
Hypothetical. It's already in the works. I've been accumulating Shadowborn Apostles for years now.
I've been big brain.
Because I've always wanted to build one, so I've just been accumulating gradually, slowly but surely for Commander. How much are they now, Shadowborn Apostles?
I'm actually like looking that up right now. They're $4 each for a common.
Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah, that's rough, buddy. How much is the foil? The foil is $12. That's a hefty price tag. I'm feeling less inclined to build that deck now.
Yeah. But my next card is a mono green card that I want to put in my mono green vanilla green creature deck. Unnatural Growth, which costs 1 and 4 green. It's enchantment. But at the beginning of each combat, double the power and toughness of each creature you control until end of turn. Seems good.
Yeah. Looks like something happened on the display, by the way.
What? Oh.
I feel like this is the type of card where you're like...
Boom. Okay. There we go.
I was doing great, and then I just wrecked everyone because I doubled all the things. Like...
I like that it's not just your combat, it's each combat, but also it means that as a result, they have to burn through their removal spells before combat, so they can't surprise you on combat.
Yeah.
It's like
very good point.
So, like, it's not like no combat tricks after you declare or anything like necessarily. It's especially, I guess that's more so like to count, like they have to get rid of any damage doing removal or anything like that, or any ping spells. To kind of start pinging through things. And it just seems like, because you can't have effects like these on the cards in the deck I'm talking about, mono green vanilla bears or whatever, I can't remember, but that is gonna be my mono green deck. It's just a nice, it's a good green feeling.
Get them with Bear Force 1.
Yep. Look at all my vanilla creatures just taking you out gradually.
Slow and steady. But yeah, I like this card. I like the 4 green and the mana cost. Like you're not accidentally playing this card, and like you're not splashing for this. Like you are mono green. Like
yeah, that it's like the most single color pips I've seen in a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
maybe
ever, I can't remember the last time we had more than 3 in standard. I think there's some card. I want to say there's like a black card that's like 5 black pips. For Phyrexian Obliterator is 4 black pips.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's been a long time since we've had something like that in standard.
This is just like, this is something we're going to limit it to a very specific deck kind of situation almost. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to be fun. Mm-hmm. It's strong. I mean, it's not like crazy, but it's inconvenient.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it has like some really cool surprise if you play this in like with a commander that has trample. Yeah, like because you get to play this. It's a 5-mana enchantment that then you go to combat and you double your commander's power and attack for a bunch with trample.
Yep. How close are you to 21?
Yep.
Do it to Thrund.
Yes, get him. My next card is also mono green, although not nearly as hard to cast. And that is Augur of Autumn for a 1 green, for a 2/3 human druid. Right. Augur has, you may look at the top card of your library at any time, and then you may play cards from the top of your, or play land cards from the top of your library.
Sounding familiar?
Yeah, it's almost like a certain Courser or Oracle that we know.
Oracle. That's expensive.
Yeah.
If only it wasn't human.
Right. And then, this card actually does have Coven.
Oh.
So there is a Coven on our list. And that is, as long as you control 3 or more creatures with different powers, you may cast creature spells from the top of your library. And so this card's sweet. I think this is I said this about Party way back in Battle for Zendikar. Not Battle for Zendikar. Zendikar Rising. That the best party cards are the ones that are good without the cost reduction, or with just like 1 pip off cost reduction or whatever, where you didn't need the full party for it to be good. And Coven's kind of the same way. I think Coven is best when the card is good without that ability, and that ability is gravy on top. And that's really how I feel about this.
Yeah, the card itself is great because it's just, Oracle, look at top. You can play you're preventing some possible, missed land drops. And then if you do happen to have the Coven ability, now you also have an extra card to play. If it's a creature. Which, and green looks pretty good.
Yeah, again, that should be the main thing you're going for, or at least one of the primary things. And in between this and Ranger class, I say not confidently that that's the one I'm thinking of. That you can have multiple ways in your deck to play creatures off the top of your library. So you can kind of go big on that effect if that's the direction that you want to go. On top of Ranger class giving +1/+1 counters when you attack, so that kind of lets you control the size for Coven. So I like it.
I like it a lot. Let's see. Yeah, sure. Let's do my next card, Croaking Counterpart. Cause it is a sorcery spell that costs 1, a green, and a blue. It's create a token that's a copy of target non-frog creature, except it's a 1/1 green frog. And it has flashback. 3, a green, and a blue. Cast it from your graveyard. I like it.
I like this a lot.
It's like, I'm gonna steal some of your effects real quick here. Also, because it is a sorcery that's creating a copy, this is super abusable.
Yeah. Yeah, if only the previous set had a bunch of things about copying spells.
Copying spells, and then on top of that, it's also in the perfect color combination to where your tokens get doubled. quadrupled even. This card can be like, granted, you'd be almost building around this one card, but it's almost worth it.
Yeah, I mean, at the same time,
there's so many crazy combos that you can do.
Right, it's one of those things that if you're playing that kind of deck, this is kind of just the 8th of this effect kind of thing. Like, and so you're building around this type of effect, and then it's kind of just gravy on top when you get this specific one.
Well, we don't get. I feel like we don't have a ton of like spells that create copies of creatures. You know, that's what makes this a little more unique. Granted, or I guess the most recent iteration of this. Oops. I want to see, because this is it. Kind of what? So Cackling Counterpart prior, which are instant speeds. Faded Infatuation and Tempt with Reflections. Granted, Tempt with Reflections is that tempting offer type play card.
That's a commander card.
But, Crackling Counterpart and Faded Infatuation are the two, and they all cost 3. The other ones are blue exclusive, like mono blue cards, and don't necessarily have any other downsides. Just create a copy. This is like, it's now a frog.
Mm-hmm. Are you saying being a frog is a downside, Chris?
No. Although, to counter this type of deck, just play a frog deck.
Yeah. That'd be really fun.
It's like, can't copy my cards.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, definitely being a 1/1 can be a problem. The fact that it does shrink it down, but the fact that, like, especially like, you brought it up, Crackling Counterpart is kind of the closest analog, but the flashback for croaking is
considerably cheaper.
2 mana cheaper, and so you're trading instant speed for 2 mana.
For 2 mana second cost, second cast of timing. And then Faded Infatuation is limited creatures you control. But I just like it. It's just, let's copy some spells.
So
also, it's like this is just, sorry, I'm just thinking of Call Time right now. So you're copying the gods, but now they're frog gods. It's like Gator Loki and Loki,
That's how you do it.
That's how you do it. So that's how that happened in the if you need to know how
he got croaking counterparted.
Yep, exactly.
My next card, I know it's a werewolf set, but I got a cool vampire. And that's Florian, Vardari, and Scion for 1 black red. He's a 3/3 vampire noble, legendary creature. With first strike, and then at the beginning of your post-combat main phase, look at the top 7 or top X cards of your library, where X is the amount of life your opponent's lost this turn. Exile 1 of those cards, put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. You may play the exiled card this turn.
Is that in Rakdos?
Yeah. Whoa! If only there were ways in Rakdos to make your opponents lose life. Let alone obviously combat. But I mean, a first striking 3/3 for 3 is solid on its own. On top of the fact that it's a great vampire, on top of the fact that probably not that first turn that you play it, just mana wise, but the fact that the next time that you deal damage, you would then get to look at a whole bunch of cards
and pick one.
Yeah, and so that's pretty sweet. And you can play a land if you hit a land off this. So there's always that little bit of value as well.
And you're not losing them. It's what's also nice. Like, if you are doing a ton. Yeah. I like this. It doesn't have like exact synergy with like vampires necessarily, but this would be a 3/3 for 3 is really solid commander material. Get him out fast. He's hard to deal with when he's attacking.
I mean, if you can get, assuming you just have Florian, I feel like if you can get 2 hits in, you're in good shape. Like you basically get to look at the top 3 cards twice. Like I feel like you're in good shape, let alone if you're like not playing Florian on turn 3. You're kind of just using it as a 3 mana, look at a bunch of cards kind of thing.
Yeah. Seems good.
Mm-hmm.
My next card is Lear, Disciple of the Drowned. He is a 3/4 human wizard that costs 3 and 2 blue. And it is a legendary creature. But has a caveat. Spells can't be countered. And that's the best kind of blue to play.
And no Talrand here. Or Baral.
I'm going the opposite end. I'm straight up. Quit countering my stuff. I'm running blue. I'm not countering, obviously, because I can't either. It doesn't spell, it's not spells you control can't be countered. It's spells can't be countered. Got him. And then is a secondary effect. Each instant and sorcery card in your graveyard has flashback, and the flashback cost is equal to that card's mana cost.
Yeah.
Yes. So just giving everything flashback that didn't previously have it, and it's just you guys pay it again. So it means, later in the game, even if this isn't your commander or anything, later in the game, you drop them, you now have an entire graveyard of flashback shenanigans. Just no counters.
Yeah, I'm planning to get a Lear for my Varen Prismari deck.
I'm just planning. This is my mono blue commander. It's like, you guys know what I'm not doing? Playing Lear because I'm going to counter all your stuff. No, I'm just... it's how you get him. It's like, oh, this guy's playing... He's not going to be running a ton of counters. You just sit there, you never cast him, you just counter everything. It's just all counters.
Got him. Fake out.
Yep.
Yeah. I also like that you can't run the spells that when they counter do something, but you can run the like return target spell to its opponent's to its owner's hand. Those kinds of cards.
Yes.
So like remand doesn't work, but I think it's unsubstantiate or return target spell or creature to its owner's hand, something like that.
Who is it? Is it the reversal spell?
Narset's reversal.
Narset's reversal works. Because return target spell and copy it. Yeah, so those things like that work. So you can't. It's like technically I'm not countering it. You can cast it again.
Yeah,
I'm just taking it for my own now, and I love that.
Yeah,
that'd be this deck for me. Be like, hey, look, you can do it again later. It's mine now. Sorry,
just for now.
Look, I'll even target the same thing you're trying to target right now, okay?
It's just for the fun.
Yeah.
Okay. Third time's the charm. My next card, and we finally got a legendary creature, human werewolf. That's actually a good werewolf commander. Shots fired, Ulrich from the last Innistrad set. And that is Tovalar, Dyer Overlord for 1 red and green for a 3/3. Whenever a wolf or werewolf you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 3 or more wolves or werewolves, it becomes night, then transform any number of human werewolves you control. So awesome card.
I like this because it does throw back to original or return or shadows and the transform mechanics. So this is definitely the wording on this card is designed for a extended format or commander werewolf deck for sure.
Yeah, I like that this kind of helps you with those older werewolves that don't transform when it becomes night. This just gives you a way to be like, we're flipping them. And Tovalar is a werewolf, and so he's daybound, and then has the backside of Tovalar, the Midnight Scourge, which is a 4/4 that whenever a wolf or werewolf you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. And then the Kessig Wolf Run ability of X red green, target wolf or werewolf you control gets +X/+O and gains trample until end of turn. And so the fact that you have the card draw on both sides of this card is amazing. That's definitely not something to be underestimated. If like aggro decks and commander struggle because they run out of cards, Tovalar giving you card draw on your commander for wanting to play aggro is just super great.
No, it's not. It's the worst.
It's the worst.
It's the worst, though. No, this is it. I really like Tovalar too. This is I definitely like, from what we've seen so far, definitely the ideal werewolf commander, bar none.
Yeah. And this is a card I think for me as someone who doesn't plan on playing werewolves in commander anytime soon. I think that Tovalar definitely has the plus side of the I'm excited, other people are excited kind of thing.
Well, now we can play vampires v werewolves.
Hey, you just got to make that werewolf deck.
Maybe.
But yeah, like I said, for me, this is the card that I was most hoping we would get because I knew it mattered a lot to a lot of players that we got a good legendary werewolf. And so I'm very excited to see that we did. Because kind of no matter what, it turns out with whenever a creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card, like no matter what tribe you're in, that's probably a good commander for that tribe.
Yeah. But when they are flipped, when it is nighttime, and you don't want them to pay and activate that ability, you've got the Pything Needle. Oops. Because sometimes you got to put a stop to things. Is this actually on my list?
Yes, it is.
Okay. This one, I like this card because against combo decks, so many different things that this can interrupt if used correctly, when you know what to expect. It is one that's harder to do when you don't know your opponent's decks or necessarily, but when you have a regular play group or whatever, you kind of are more familiar with certain combos. Pything Needle comes into play awesomely. So it costs 1. It's an artifact. When it enters the battlefield, choose a card name. Activate abilities of sources with the chosen name can't be activated unless they're mana abilities.
Yeah. It's one of those cards. It's like it's a sick tech. Like if you're it's cheap. If your opponent's playing a lot of creatures or a lot of planeswalkers, like it's kind of one of those things that like can just coincidentally shut down a lot of things. Lands with activated abilities, like the hostile.
Yep.
Like they can still tap for mana, but they don't get that other ability.
They can't use it. They can't do the sack outlets. They can't, as a result, they won't be able to flip.
Yeah. And to your point, it's a card that is great when you know what to do with it.
Yes.
And it can be a very risky card. Like you mentioned it being meta dependent. I wouldn't play this in a commander deck unless I knew that the majority of my opponents were going to have commanders with activated abilities that I wanted to stop.
Exactly. Which is a fair amount of commanders. Like most are like, I mean, a lot, it just depends. And yeah, you just want to be aware of what you are working toward.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good, card to have available to go into a deck. It's a colorless artifact. Could go in anything, so options.
Yeah.
But yeah, it doesn't belong in every deck. I mean, there's other ways you can negate abilities and get by everything. So it depends. It is one of those. I like this card because it goes in kind of those niche situations where, you know, I've been playing. It's like, okay, I know this one struggles to shut things down. This is a nice way. I know what I need to shut down. And this is a nice, cheap cost that not necessarily going to hurt me, especially if I know, because it comes in early. If I have it early, I can play it, and I'm just going to call them out right away. Or if it comes later, it's like before they've had a chance to set up, though, or I can search for it when I see them. They have 2 out of 3 pieces, things like that. So it's a fun one. It's like, but I got a needle.
But I got it. My next card, I have a soft spot in my heart for 4 mana draw 2s, to the point that I put an extremely bad card on my list from Zendikar Rising. But this one, I have a feeling, is substantially better than that one. And so this is Memory Deluge for 2 blue. It's an instant. Look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the amount of mana spent to cast this spell. Put 2 of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. And then this has Flashback for 7 mana. So the first time you cast this, you look at the top 4, then you draw 2 of them. And then the second time you cast this, you look at the top 7 and keep 2 of them. And so it's kind of like a mini dig through time with another dig through time stapled onto the back of it. Although of course without delve, but
also like if you have like, you know, instant sorcery cost reducers, it's draw 2.
Yeah. Worst case scenario. Yeah. You're just 2 mana draw 2.
Two mana draw 2. It's pretty good.
Yeah. That's not bad at all.
Even 4 mana, pick 2. 2 of 4. Nice too.
And then the opposite of that is also true, which is kind of funny. So like if you're playing Thalia, Guardian of Thraben. Yeah, Guardian of Thraben, which makes makes non-creature spells cost 1 more to cast. It's now a 5 mana, look at 5, draw 2. And so it kind of has that fun thing that we see every once in a while, where you can actually play around with like taxing effects and make the taxing effect better for you.
Yeah, it makes the card not really have a downside when you are being taxed, which is super nice.
Yeah, I could, if control decks are big in limited or big in constructed formats, I could definitely see this being a big player. We'll see, but I think it could be good.
So you like to cast spells?
I do like to cast spells.
Well, I've got a commander for you. Possibly. I don't know. If there's isn't in a set, I'm bringing it up. Vader, Astral, Archmage is a 1/2 for 3. So it's meh. But he costs 1, a blue, and a red. But if it's neither day or night, it becomes day as Vader, Astral, Archmage enters the battlefield. Instant and sorcery spells you cast cost X less to cast, where X is Vader's power. And then whenever day becomes night or night becomes day, put a 1/1 counter on Vader. Just keep flipping that switch.
Yep. Yeah, I like this card a lot. We were talking about it before the cast. I love this alternate art for this guy. And even the regular art for him is really cool. This is kind of like we have Mizzix of the Ismagus at home, in the sense that you are basically just, you want to be playing the big instants and sorceries, but then you also kind of want to be playing the cheap instants and sorceries, so you can be flipping it back and forth. So I think there's a very fun tension there. But yeah, I like this guy a lot.
But I mean, like, he has some, like, in this set, I think he pairs so well with certain things. Like, obviously, you're gonna throw in the Celestis in his deck. Just you know, you get a free flip, guaranteed flip, without trying to use some other effect to change. It's like you get a little more control over that day night, and getting them pumped up and ready, and then just blowing away some giant spells for nothing. Well,
definitely agree.
This is just the color pips. Thank you.
Yeah, Magic was on my short list.
I feel like Izzet has been getting some fun commanders, and that it's so problematic. Because they all do something different, and they all play in that Izzet realm, or that the blue-red realm. I guess it's not just Izzet anymore, but you know, they all play in that realm with their colors so differently, and that like they're trying to find different interactions in there. There's so many different crazy interactions with blue-red.
And I feel like, especially with doing Strixhaven recently, like there's a lot of you could kind of switch all these commanders out at will, but they also kind of all want slightly different things in the deck. And I think that that's a very cool space compared to the Simic blue-green. I don't know, play a bunch of lands and draw a card. Like, I feel like these blue-red commanders are a lot more diverse in how they approach the theme.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I love. I think that's why it's one of my favorite colors, is because, but also it's just overwhelming anymore. Like, I don't, what do I want to do? What? I'm going to try this now. So, I mean, this just gives me another card that I want to try to run as a commander in that realm.
I guess this is my 8th card with where we're at.
Yes.
Is a card I want to be good. This is the type of card I want to believe in, because I want to live in the world where this card is good. Is it? Maybe. But I want to believe. And this is Angel Fire Ignition. And so this is a 1 red-white sorcery. Put 2++1 counters on target creature. It gains Vigilance, Trample, Lifelink, Indestructible, and Haste until end of turn. And then has Flashback for 2 red and white. I just want to live the dream. Like, is this card good?
Debatable.
But I want it to be good so bad.
I mean, it definitely has its place. Unfortunately, that sorcery speed hurts it a bit. But also, I mean, it's in the right color set for like Feather. And this card would be dumb in Feather.
Yeah, this card's very good in Feather. Because I think for the Flashback, you can choose which exile happens first. I could be wrong there. That could be incorrect. But I think but I know you can definitely choose for the first one. You can use and have it not go to your graveyard, just keep coming back to your hand. But
exactly. So I mean, like, that's really the ideal situation when it comes to using it with Feather.
And then, like, I mean, that pile of keywords is a good pile of keywords.
And to recur that turn after turn.
Yeah.
Like, because it is a target. So you exile it off the initial cast, and then instead of putting it in a graveyard, if you do, return it to your hand at the beginning of the next end step. So I don't think that works for the Flashback.
Okay, because it's not
going to the graveyard.
It's not an effect. It's
you cast it from the graveyard for its flashback cost, then it goes directly into exile, like that. Yeah, because it's not going back to the graveyard from there. It doesn't you can't trigger Feather.
Yeah, because I wasn't sure if was like Whip of Erebos with Obsidian Ghost Council, where because both affects exile, you can choose which one. But
maybe you can. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah,
because it's whenever you cast an instant sorcery spell that targets a creature, exile that card instead of putting it. But it's that instead piece. So I don't know. Judge.
Yeah, judge.
Whether it matters, you definitely don't want to be probably. Well, I mean, either way, it doesn't hurt. But like, if you have Feather out, just oh my goodness, every turn, just gradually gets bigger every turn.
Yeah, I'll look it up and we can see if we have something in the post show.
But yeah, you can definitely have a big turn though with this card, and its flashback isn't bad. It costs 1 more to cast it from the graveyard. Even if it's not a Feather deck. I agree. I love the flavor of this card. My angel is the flint, and I am her steed. It's just a flint.
Okay, and it does sound, after a quick Google search, you can choose to let it come back to your hand for Flashback with Feather. So,
ooh, my goodness. Okay.
And so, yeah, so that's also great. So this is then good if it has to sit in your graveyard or something goes wrong. So.
And I guess that brings me to my last two cards. We'll start off with kind of the worst of the two, but I did pick the two Planeswalkers in the set. So the first one being Teferi, which is going to be awesome and fun to play because it does just basic Teferi things. Teferi, Who Slows the Sunset, costs 2. It's a 4-cost Teferi. What can go wrong?
Well, 3 mana Teferi was a pain, and 5 mana Teferi was a pain. So now we're trying.
Now we're trying to balance it out instead of going like we're going to go for that 6 mana Teferi because that's too far.
Now we're 6 mana Teferi is also
a pain.
Yeah, competitive in EDH. Yeah. So
So Teferi in EDH is just Teferi.
Yeah.
And this is a pretty decent one. It's not as okay, it's pretty crazy. But enters with 4 loyalty. It's +1. Choose up to 1 target artifact, up to 1 target creature, and up to 1 target land. Untap the chosen permanents you control. Tap the chosen permanents you don't control. You gain 2 life. Think about this. This can very quickly make Teferi like you just cast Teferi. He's officially free because the things you just untapped are Soul Ring and your dual tap land.
Yeah, and you can net mana off Teferi.
Yes,
which is crazy. And I was talking to this card about Steve, who was on our Adventures in the Forgotten Realms, and I was like, I feel like I'm the only person in the world that's excited to use this +1 to tap my opponent's things. Like again, I'm over here in this like mono blue tempo world where I'm like, we tap down their things, we attack them for a bunch, we win the game. I feel like that's like the worst way to be playing this card, but that's because
you get 1 creature to tap
down.
Yeah,
it's not great.
It's not great, but I mean, it's a +1 loyalty ability. Like, and also you can technically you choose your artifact, your land, and their creature.
Mm-hmm.
Boom. Okay, and you're gaining 2 life. Seems good. Yep. -2 is look at the top 3 cards of your library, put 1 of them into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. I'm pretty sure that's a plus effect on one of his cards or something similar.
Yeah, I think it's similar to 6 mana Teferi.
Yeah, but that's a plus ability on that one. But that's fine. It's fine. You're probably going to be mostly +1ing to get him up to his ult to get the emblem. You get an emblem with untap all permanents you control during each opponent's untap step, and you draw a card during each opponent's draw step. So you pretty much you get to do what your opponent does during their phases. It's like, oh, untap, boom, draw, boom, nice.
Yeah, and I think that Teferi is gonna be very solid. The classic rule of thumb is don't rate commanders don't rate planeswalkers based on their ultimates. And I think if you just look at the top 2 abilities that Teferi has here, those are 2 very good abilities.
Yeah.
Like drawing or looking at the top 3 and getting the best one into your hand is very good. That's Anticipate as the Dragonlord Ojutai player. That's what Dragonlord Ojutai does. And so just that style effect is very strong. It's much better than just draw a card, since you get so much more knowledge. And then let alone, as you brought up, it's not difficult in Commander for Teferi to be free.
No. And also, like, this is definitely a Teferi that belongs in Atraxa.
Oh, yeah.
If you're running Atraxa Super Friends, that's one reason it's on my list. It's a new edition. Granted, this is almost a swap out. Like, definitely, like, I'm at the point with Atraxa where I have to actually consider what I have to take out. And this has a solid place, and it goes right in.
And also from a Commander standpoint, you mentioned the idea of untapping your own land, your own artifact, and tapping an opponent's creature. There's also some great politics for that in Commander.
Yeah.
Where if you tap the creature of the player like who just went before you, like 2 other players can now attack them if they're the threat. So like there's some good politics in that. And so there's definitely some value to be had with Teferi, and essentially in a 4-player game.
I also like it. There's someone like left up like, what is it? Is it Mana Vault? No. Yeah. Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Like they have the pay to untap it, right?
Yeah.
But they didn't tap it for mana. And you're just like,
got him.
Tap them down.
Got him good.
What? It's rude. Feels good.
Feels good.
And then now they're trying to figure out how to get it because you're activating this every turn. They're just like, I want to win that way now.
Yeah.
That's how I want to win a game.
Got to ping them down with their own mana vault.
With their own mana vault. Just like, you're going to untap it? You're going to start wasting mana to untap it or whatever. Oh, feels good. It's good life.
Yeah. My next card, I anticipate being blown out by several times. This also is a card that came up in the stream yesterday, and I mentioned would show up on my list here. I firmly believe that this is probably going to be one of the best commanders in the set when it comes to the more casual tables like we tend to play at, and that is Gissa, Glorious Resurrector for 2 black, legendary creature, a human wizard. She's a 4/4. When a creature an opponent controls would die, exile it instead. We're going to pause there. We talked about that with Lysa. Like, graveyard hate, solid, play it. But Gissa doesn't stop there. So the beginning of your upkeep, put all creature cards exiled with Gissa, Glorious Resurrector onto the battlefield under your control. They gain Decayed. Chris, we forgot to talk about Decayed earlier.
We did.
And so Decayed means that the creature cannot block, and then that if it attacks, it is sacrificed at the end of combat. So this basically gives you like a one-time use for all of your opponent's creatures.
Feels nice.
Feels nice. Yeah, I firmly believe this is going to be one of the strongest commanders for, again,
banned? I'm just kidding.
I don't, yeah. I mean, if Turgrid's not banned, no, I don't think there's a way we're going to see Gissa get banned.
No,
but,
it's just, it's a cool effect. It's inconvenient, sure, but I'm like a good, and the black obviously has the one-sided board wipes and everything. We're going to do some fun stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm really excited to see this played.
Throw in your sack outlets.
Yeah, I got to find a place for this in some of my decks. Multiple of my favorite commanders get blown out by this card. And so that's kind of the world I like to live in.
I have a question about this.
There's fun tension like that. What's your question?
How does that effect work with tokens?
The tokens wouldn't. They would get exiled, but then they couldn't be returned.
They couldn't be returned. Oh, okay.
Yeah. And they're not creature cards. So there's also a kind of funny thing
okay.
there.
It says cards. Okay. Sorry.
I was like, well, but even if it didn't, there would be nothing in exile to return.
Right.
But there's also
I know like that's exactly what happened. Like a token goes to the graveyard. Yeah. It's not a card, so it ceases to exist.
Yeah.
But I was like, what happens when they if it isn't a return ability from exile? Does that still work? But,
yeah. So there's a funny thing here with hostile and cards like that, where because they die as a creature, but when a creature would be exiled, or when a card would be exiled, it flips back to the front face.
So you get a land.
So Gissa can't return it because it's not a creature card to be put back into play. So there's kind of that funny like, oh, I'm going to take my opponent's Ormondal. Nope, it's a Westvale Abbey. Just that kind of funny stuff of like, you get to exile your thing. Is that going to matter? 1% of the time at most, but like, it's just going to be a kind of funny thing when it does happen. And also that art is sweet. Mad Spoops.
Yes. And my last card, kind of situation here. Did I already have them up? Oops. But that's not the cool art. There we go. Okay. Arlen, the Pack's Hope?
Mm-hmm.
No, sorry, the art covers it up. Is an Arlen Planeswalker card. Costs 2, a red and a green for 4. And it is a Bound Nightbound Planeswalker card. Super cool. Daybound, we have the Pack's Hope, which has a +1 until your next turn. You may cast creature spells as though they had flash, and each creature you control enters the battlefield with an additional 1/1 counter on it. Pretty solid 1/1 effect. Start getting some creatures out, or any. Yeah, or now we're turning a green-red deck into a flash deck.
Yeah, which of course is also very good with Daybound Nightbound, because it means you can activate the plus, pass. Well, not the turn you cast it, but you can activate the plus, pass the turn, cast creatures at instant speed, and then you get to flip all of your werewolves because it's now night.
Yep.
So,
and then it has the -3 on the Daybound end. Create 2/2 green wolf creature tokens for -3. Also, a pretty solid effect. And then the Arlen the Moon's Fury, which is the Nightbound end, +2, add a green and a red to your mana pool. Seems solid. Good.
I mean, you get half the cost of the card back if it comes in on Nightbound.
That's true. Yep. And it's 0. Until end of turn, Arlen the Moon's Fury becomes a 5/5 werewolf creature with trample, indestructible, and haste.
Yeah.
So it's cool to see another creature getting the Gideon idea a little more. So it'll be nice to have like that kind of Planeswalker guy that it's like, oh well, it's gonna get in at you now. Actually, smack you in the face. You want to swing at him last turn? Well, too bad.
Yeah. Yeah, I like this card. I've already heard some of the big players talking about how this card has a lot of struggles with Daybound Nightbound, because a lot of times you want to be making the tokens, and a lot of times this will enter on the Nightbound side, and so there's kind of an interesting tension there, which I think is good design. I don't think every card should be good all of the time, but
it's like, yeah, you have to play around this effect, which fortunately you don't have a lot of control over, at least with this card alone.
Yep.
And that's part of it. Otherwise, you just have 4 kind of cool effects that you that you're just playing around with. That seems a little cray.
Yeah. Also, really good with Bard class. Turns out. You can reduce the cost by 2, and then make your 2 mana back. And with Moon's Fury,
and it's all 6 right there.
Yeah, which is definitely not something to laugh at. Like that's a very good place to be.
It's essentially pretty much 0 cost 6 loyalty Planeswalker right there.
Yep. And then if you're plussing, you're probably flipping to the other side so you can make wolves next turn.
Yep.
Or do the +1. Yeah.
Yeah, or you have a ton of creatures you just want to get out and you don't want people to see them coming. Who knows what's gonna happen? I don't. I do, but yeah, this is a awesome take, a great adaptation for Planeswalker for what this set wants.
Yep, I like this a lot more than the other werewolf style Arlen, the old werewolf style.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, my last card is the last Planeswalker in the set, and that is Wrenn and 7. Also, not necessarily a surprise to the people that watched the stream yesterday. I spoke very highly of this card. I've already built a historic Brawl deck for them, and so we got that going. But Wrenn and 7 is a 3 green legendary Planeswalker Wrenn for 5 starting loyalty. It's a 4 mana Planeswalker, which we haven't necessarily had.
I mean 5.
Too recently. What'd you say?
You said 4? It's 3 in green.
Right, yeah, but 4 ability.
Oh, 4 ability. Sorry, you're right. Sorry.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm so confused.
And so we had the Nicol Bolas from War of the Spark, whose ability gave him the other abilities. But it's been a while since we've had a 4 ability walker. And turns out they're pretty good. So Rin's +1, look at the top 4 cards of your library, put all land cards revealed this way into your hand, put the rest into your graveyard. 0, put any number of land cards from your hand onto the battlefield, tapped. -3, create a green tree folk creature token with reach, and those creatures' power and toughness are each equal to the number of lands you control. And then -8, return all permanent cards from your graveyard to your hand. You get an emblem with you have no maximum hand size. Yes. This card's great. Honestly, playing this yesterday, I was just amazed at how good making the tree folk is if your opponent just doesn't have removal. Like, it just gets, it's a 5/5 the turn that you make it. And if they kill the tree folk, you probably still have a Rin. If they kill Rin, you have the tree folk. Like, yeah. Let alone the fact that you can theoretically draw 4 cards with the +1. Granted, they're all lands, but you theoretically can draw 4 cards with this.
I mean, if it's a good thing this guy, like, this is oops all lands, dude.
Yeah.
You know, literally just oops. Lands, and I'm going to make tree folks with Ren.
Yep.
It's like, okay.
Yeah. If I was going to have a rule 0 commander, it would probably be Ren in 7.
Like,
and then this would be, it would be Multani the rest of the time. But yeah, I think I like this card so much.
Yeah, this is definitely going in my, like, mono green vanilla creatures deck. Just because it's such random support, and just look at all my force, and then now look how big my tree folk is.
And I feel like this card has the great effect of being wanted by a bunch of different decks. So, like, even if you're not playing a deck with a lot of lands, but you do want cards in the graveyard, the +1 fills your graveyard. And then, like, if you're playing a deck with a bunch of card draw, the 0 lets you just dump a bunch of those lands that you drew into play and in one step, and kind of clears up the space in your hand. Then, like, obviously that then makes the tree folk huge, but, like, I really like it for that versatility. And I mean, that's kind of why 4-mana planeswalker or 4 ability planeswalkers tend to be really good.
Yeah, also a great addition to Atraxa. Potentially get you through some of your deck to fix and do some things and do some fun stuff, get them big, and also provides a lot of protection for your planeswalkers is the biggest thing. So you can reduce your creature count and start getting, protecting them with Ren in 7, and then have a crazy dumb board state as you begin ulting all your planeswalkers.
Right.
Yep. It's a thing.
Yeah, I'm probably looking at, for paper, at least 2 copies of Ren, and so we'll see what the cost lands at, because that's going to kind of determine. And then Mythic Spoiler didn't do the alternate art for this, but the alternate art is Ren with the pumpkin, which I think is amazing. And I really wish that art is not like $8 billion. And so, Chris, it looks like for the URL, if you change it to Ren and 7, the letter P.jpg, it'll switch to the alternate art.
Boom.
And I just want this in my life.
Also, what's the new one? I want to know the lore. We went from 6 to 7. What increased?
They're actually, apparently, one of the most recent stories was about that, and so.
Wouldn't tell me.
So Ren, we'll do it in post show chat. Okay. We'll have a Ren chat there. But I believe that brings us through all of our top 10 cards for Innistrad Midnight Hunt. This week, want to remind everyone, book club, 2 weeks away.
Oh, I was like, it's not this week.
September 30th. No, it's not. I definitely have way too much to read for it to be this week. But make sure to be knocking it out. Dune is a hefty book. I have my copy right here. I'm making good progress. And so
you didn't give me a heads up.
Yeah.
Then I can show off my copy.
You're already finished reading because you're a boss.
It has the introduction by Neil Gaiman.
Oh yeah, that's right.
It's a cool copy. I found it at Powell's, guys, in Portland. It was great.
And so make sure to be reading or audiobooking or spark noting, whatever it is that people will be doing for that. Super looking forward to this book club. And then this week, we might also have some streams. Not 100% sure. Chris, are you planning to stream Wednesday?
I will be streaming Wednesday. I am just still trying to get... I'll be grinding through, playing through some mini games in Final Fantasy 14 at the Golden Saucer because the Regalia mount in Final Fantasy 14 costs 200,000 MGP. And I have like 20,000.
Slow and steady.
Yep. It's going to take some time. So maybe grinding some fates. I have to do some research by then to figure out what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, but we'll get there. We still got a few weeks before that event ends. So
then not 100% sure about Shanine and Emma if they will be streaming, but
Shanine probably will be.
There. Yeah. And then I should be back on Sunday with probably some more Innistrad Midnight Hunt or Phantom Brigade. Probably one of those two. Not 100% sure.
¿Por qué no los dos?
You're asking good questions, Chris.
It's like, I'm going to play an hour of Phantom Brigade and we're jumping into Magic. Boom.
Yeah. And so it's I'm very much looking forward to Midnight Hunt, especially after how my first two drafts have gone, which, listeners, you can find over on our YouTube, where you can also find the recordings of all of our past episodes. You can watch live Monday nights at 6:45 Mountain Time. And then you can also check us out wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. You can find us on social media and chat with us on our Discord server. And you can also shoot us an email at 1st411@gmail.com. You can check out the Redbubble store. And then you can find us at our personal social media. I'm Hugh Marwithill.
And I'm Not So Foreign.
And it's been a great week.
Wash your hands.